She said she was just stressed. But her silence was too loud. So I tracked her. For 7 days. I didn't want to believe it, but what I found changed how I saw everything, including myself. Mason sat in his car, parked in front of the house that had once felt like home. His fingers hovered over his phone, unsure whether to dial her number. He hadn't heard from Molly all day, and something felt off. The silence was thicker than usual, almost as if she were deliberately avoiding him. They had been married for 5 years, or at least, he had thought they had. Their life together had seemed ideal in many ways, stable, secure, full of plans for a future they had always imagined. But lately, things had changed. Little things, at first, snaps of irritation, unspoken tension hanging between them, but they were growing too noticeable to ignore. Was it just stress, or was there something more? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It started after that camping trip with Brad. Mason had brushed off his suspicions at first, telling himself it was just his mind working overtime. Brad Hunt, his boss and supposed friend, had been with him that weekend, and they'd spent their time hiking, catching up on work, and, in Mason's mind, bonding. But something about that trip didn't sit right. He'd returned to find Molly acting differently. She had always been warm, easy to talk to, but now she was distant. She snapped at him over trivial matters, and when he tried to engage in casual conversation, she'd either brush him off or give him short, distracted answers. Her eyes lacked the usual warmth, and Mason couldn't help but feel that something was hidden behind them. He tried to talk to her about it, but she waved it off, telling him she was just stressed from work, that he was imagining things. But it wasn't just her mood. He couldn't forget the moment he was putting laundry away the day after his return. As he reached for her clothes, a strong, unfamiliar scent hit him. It wasn't perfume, and it wasn't any smell he had ever associated with her. His heart sank as he realized something wasn't right. It was an uncomfortable, nauseating feeling, the kind of realization that made his stomach twist in knots. He didn't want to admit it, but deep down, he knew. He had to know for sure. That night, after leaving Molly a voicemail, Mason couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of betrayal. He had always trusted her implicitly, and now that trust was crumbling like a house of cards. His mind raced with thoughts he didn't want to entertain. Could she be cheating on him? The idea seemed absurd at first, but the more he replayed her actions, the more the pieces began to fit into a pattern he couldn't ignore. Mason wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. He wasn't even the type to confront people without solid evidence. But this felt different. He was being pulled into a situation he hadn't asked for, and yet, here he was, questioning the very foundation of his life. His world, once steady and predictable, now felt like it was unraveling before his eyes. He knew he couldn't let it go any longer. He needed answers. And the only way to get them was through someone who knew the law, someone who could help him navigate this painful uncertainty. He reached for his phone again and called the number of a family lawyer recommended by a friend. The conversation felt surreal, like he was acting in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. "I need to know if she's cheating on me," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "I need to know the truth." The lawyer, Lydia Hammond, was calm but direct, asking him about the details and laying out the options available. "You'll need proof, Mason," she said. "Photographs, video, something concrete to take to court if you want to file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity." He felt a lump form in his throat, but he nodded. The thought of taking such drastic steps tore him apart, but the alternative, living in this unbearable uncertainty, was even worse. He had to know. He had to have the truth, no matter how much it hurt. As he hung up, Mason's mind raced. He had just made a decision that would change everything. His marriage, the life they had built, and the future they had planned were all hanging by a thread. There was no turning back now. The truth, whatever it was, had to come out. But what would it reveal? His heart pounded as he imagined the worst. Would he be able to handle the devastation of knowing that his wife had betrayed him? Could he live with the consequences of such a painful truth? The days that followed felt like a blur. He couldn't shake the thoughts swirling in his mind. And then, as he was about to board a flight to California, his phone rang again. It was Lydia, calling to check in. Her words were simple, but they hit Mason like a freight train. "We'll find out for sure, Mason. You'll get your answers." And as he hung up, one thing became crystal clear: the course of his life was about to shift in ways he never could have imagined. Mason sat in the dimly lit corner of his car, the weight of his decision pressing down on him like a physical force. The phone call with Lydia Hammond had been brief but decisive. She had advised him to gather evidence, concrete, irrefutable proof. The thought of spying on his wife, of invading her privacy, churned his stomach. Yet, the gnawing suspicion that had taken root in his mind demanded action. His fingers hovered over the screen of his phone as he scrolled through various tracking apps. Each one promised discreet monitoring, a silent witness to his wife's movements and communications. The idea of using such tools felt like a betrayal, yet the alternative, living in uncertainty, was unbearable. He selected an app, hesitated, then tapped install. The installation was swift, almost too easy. As the app synced with his wife's phone, Mason felt a pang of guilt. He was crossing a line he had never imagined he would approach, let alone step over. The app's interface was sleek, professional, designed to be unobtrusive. It offered real-time location tracking, call logs, message previews, and even access to social media activity. The sheer breadth of information available was overwhelming. Mason's mind raced. Was this legal? Could he be prosecuted for this? He recalled Lydia's words: "Gather evidence, but be cautious." The law is a double-edged sword. In his state, Kansas, the legality of such tracking was murky. While some states had clear statutes prohibiting unauthorized tracking, Kansas lacked specific legislation on the matter. This ambiguity left Mason in a legal gray area, where the morality of his actions clashed with their legality. His thoughts were interrupted by a ping from the app. A notification appeared: "New data available." Hesitant, Mason opened it. A map displayed his wife's location, pinpointing a cafe across town. His heart raced. Was she meeting someone? The app provided a timestamp: she had been there for nearly an hour. The details were precise, unsettlingly so. He tapped into the message logs. The app had captured snippets of her recent conversations. One stood out: "I can't wait to see you tonight." The words echoed in his mind, each syllable a dagger twisting deeper into his chest. Who was she speaking to? What was she planning? The urge to confront her surged within him, but he held back. Confrontation without understanding could lead to chaos. He needed more evidence, more clarity. The app offered audio recording capabilities. With a sense of dread, Mason activated it. The device began recording ambient sounds, capturing snippets of conversations, the rustle of papers, the clink of glasses. Each recording added to the mounting evidence, yet each one deepened his sense of intrusion. Days passed, and Mason continued his surveillance. The app's data painted a picture of his wife's life that he had never known. She frequented a gym he had never seen her visit, attended events he had never been informed about, and communicated with individuals he had never heard of. The revelations were staggering, each one a blow to the trust he had once placed in her. Yet, with each piece of evidence, a question lingered in his mind: was this the truth? Or was it a distorted reflection, shaped by his own suspicions and the app's capabilities? The line between reality and perception blurred, leaving Mason in a state of constant unease. The emotional toll was undeniable. The man who had once been confident, assured, now found himself questioning every interaction, every word spoken. The weight of the evidence was crushing, yet the uncertainty it bred was equally suffocating. He had sought the truth, but in doing so, he had uncovered a labyrinth of doubt and mistrust. Mason's internal conflict intensified. The evidence he had gathered was irrefutable, yet it was also incomplete. It painted a picture, but not the entire scene. He needed more context, more understanding. The app had provided him with data, but not with answers. He considered confronting his wife, laying bare the evidence he had collected. But what would that achieve? Would it lead to reconciliation, or to further division? The fear of the unknown held him back, anchoring him in a sea of indecision. The decision to consult Lydia Hammond had been the first step into a world of surveillance and suspicion. Now, as Mason sat in his car, the weight of his actions pressing down on him, he realized that the path he had chosen was fraught with moral and emotional peril. The truth he sought had come at a cost, and the price was higher than he had ever anticipated. As he sat there, grappling with his choices, a new thought emerged. Perhaps the next step was not to gather more evidence, but to seek understanding, to confront his wife, not with accusations, but with questions. To open a dialogue, to seek the truth together, rather than through the lens of surveillance. But that was a step for another day. For now, Mason sat in his car, the phone in his hand, the weight of his decisions heavy upon him. The search for truth had led him here, but the journey was far from over.